Like every software developer, you ask yourself the question, how many raiding parties does it take down your village? Finally, we can answer that question, and we can do it quantitatively through the new game, The Great Whale Road. This is going to be a fun episode where we talk to the author, learn about the process, and see just how he got it on Windows. And that's this episode of Dev Radio. Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Microsoft Dev Radio. I'm Jerry Nixon, and I'm here with Joachim Sammer. He's the CEO of Sunburned Games. We're going to talk about game development, specifically their new release, The Great Whale Road. And Joachim, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I'm all the way over here in Colorado. You're all the way over there. Where are you?
We are based in Spain, in Valencia, a small city south of Barcelona.
Sweet. And this is great. I think you're the first guest I've ever had on the show from Spain. Maybe the second guest from Europe. So just, we're really broadening here. It's terrific. Tell us, before we start talking about Sunburned Games, before we start talking about the Great Whale Road, tell me just a little bit about who you are.
Yes, so I'm the co-founder of Sunburned Games, the studio. We started off 2.5 years ago. Originally, I'm from a software engineering management background. I used to work in London for quite a while. I used to work for financial technology startups, and I used to work for Citigroup for 6.5 years or so. So my background is quite different to what I'm doing nowadays.
Yeah, usually you're talking to somebody who's in the game industry, and they're just soaking in creative. They're an art major. They really have all of this. Look at you coming from a traditional software background.
Yeah, I think it was something where I always wanted to try it for a while, and we had the opportunity to get out of the rat race for a short while. And so we said, okay, we're trying it. We said after London, and we used to live in London for 9 years. We decided to come to Spain, and Valencia is a great place to start a small software / game development business. So we kicked off beginning of 2015, and I've been working on the game for 2 years.
Ah, what an investment of your life. 2 years of your life in this game. It's pretty incredible. Let's back up just a second to Valencia. Tell me just a little bit about why Valencia.
Valencia is the third largest city in Spain, so it's slightly more cost efficient compared to Madrid or Barcelona. It has plenty of universities. You have plenty of young people graduating who look for interesting challenges, looking for their first jobs. There are actually also folks from abroad who come here to take a time out or start a business. So we actually have like a new studio which has been founded like the last few months, where both of the founders are from LA. So it's actually there's a little bit of traffic coming from everywhere, nowadays.
That's cool. That's very cool. I tell you what, I get a lot of interaction with developers from Spain. They're smart developers. That's the easy thing to just categorize. Put them in that pigeonhole. They're just smart developers, and it's cool when I get to interact with them as well. So congratulations. All right. So a couple of years ago, you decided to start off with Sunburned Games. Was it just you by yourself?
Me and my wife. So she's more on the finance and business side of things, and I'm looking after the studio and the game development and the writing.
Got it. So you were on summer vacation, and both of you got sunburned, and you came up with the name.
Something like that, yeah.
And then along comes The Great Whale Road. Is this the first title for Sunburned Games?
Yes. We had like 2 or 3 titles where we were thinking to start off with. It was something where I was thinking about doing an historical title set in the Middle Ages for a while. And I've been reading too many historical fiction novels set in the early Middle Ages. So it was the one which jumped at me, more or less.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll tell you something great about The Great Whale Road is in a world where every video game seems to be set 200 years in the future. This is actually very fascinating to be able to go through. Before we talk about the technology and things on that side, tell me a little bit about how much work is it and how much effort did you put into it to make it historically accurate?
A lot more than you would think. I can't show you the library. We have like a bookshelf with loads and loads of historical books about trade, warfare, traditions, religion. A lot of different topics had to be researched for the game. And I think we also had a research intern for like 3 months. I think overall I spent maybe 6 months, and so we spent nearly 9 months, 9 person months on just researching the background for the game.
Yeah. You know what? I think there's just a drop of maybe social responsibility to make sure that the history is at least close to correct, because a lot of your game players are learning a little bit about history thanks to they're spending hours and hours and hours in this timeline that you've created, and in a way it's a learning lesson.
I hope so, and we hope it's a fun one. Yeah, we try to. It's something which is actually, because it's for an adult audience. Yeah, we also have like the more serious topics of the period, and we try to cover all those things. But I think it's actually, because I used to study history, I read history at the University of Vienna, 25 years ago or so. It's something which is maybe close to my heart.
Yeah. Well, 25 years, very little of history has changed since then, so I think you're in good shape.
At least not that history. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we write very little so far. Let me ask you this. Well, you know what? I just realized that I know the setting of Great Railroad, but maybe a lot of our listeners have no idea. Kind of describe, just at a high level, what is this game?
The game is a seafaring adventure set in the early Middle Ages. So it's like the dark ages of European history. So it's around set in the 7th century, just before the proper Viking age. So if you think about Vikings and you think about what just happened before those folks from Scandinavia started to raid across the coasts, there's actually a period where there was a lot of trade and sea travel already. And among those travelers were already Danes and other Norse. But at that point in time, they were less raiding, they were still more trading. So we tried to cover that period and actually make that accessible to players.
And you know what's great about it is, you're right. The way you interact with, first of all, that time period was difficult. I'm so glad I'm not born then. I'm glad I'm born now. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow, always something, right? And at the same time, I get to decide, am I going to be Jerry the Terrible or are you going to be Jerry the Great, And, because I get to cooperate with nearby villages or I get to just take everything from them. And, there's some long-term consequences. It's really a sophisticated game, how this, the choices you make early kind of impact the things that are going to start occurring later in the game. And we were talking right before the call how the game is many hours. And, these early decisions, you want to play it smart, I guess, really all the way through, because you're always going to have the repercussion of the choices you make. How interwoven, how do you do that?
I think you come up with the Great Railroad is a story-driven game, so the story drives a lot of it. Yeah. So you come up with an overall story, and then you try to break it down into different acts. Yeah. It's very much like writing a script for a movie. Yeah. So you have you think about how does the story start? What is its high point, and then how do you come to a conclusion? How does it end? And so you have that story within the historical setting, and you try to keep the player engaged, and that's the key challenge. Yeah, it always has to be something interesting, something new, something surprising. So if you watch like The Walking Dead, they always have like the cliffhanger. Yeah, every episode and every series.
Right.
So you have to do something similar, maybe not as extreme, but to a certain degree you do. So you try to, each of the quests has to be a little bit of a cliffhanger to make sure the player wants more. And so when you design your story, when you write it, you think about the flow, and then you spend a lot of time writing. And it was me and Mary, who is our second writer based in New York, and we have spent we lock ourselves away for days at end, and then we just write. Yeah, and then we put together the different quests and the storylines, and we see if it works, and then you have a second round, you rewrite stuff, and then you rewrite it again, and then after 3 or 4 times you're happy with it and you can put it into the game.
How different is every gameplay? Like, if I'm going to play the game through and you're going to play the game through, at a high level, do you know what everybody is going to experience, or is it randomized?
There's some randomization, but we were very, in our case, there are 2 different approaches to game design, narrative game design now. So you have either everything is procedurally generated and random, or it's actually written and the narrative has been designed. In our case, we have designed the narrative.
That allows the dialogue to be more precise too, and allows what you're engaging to be more exact and to be able to reference things before and after rather than guessing. It's pretty rich. I feel like I've read a novel almost after I play a little bit of the game.
That actually was our objective. We wanted to create something. We wanted to try to see if it's possible to create a historical fiction novel and transfer it to the medium of making it a video game. Yeah. Yeah. And it was a challenge because you have a lot more text than you sometimes would have in a classic RPG. So we had to sometimes compromise and find the right ways to integrate it, and we redid the user interface 2 or 3 times to make sure we could actually fit the text into the game in the right way to make it nicely accessible for the players. There's actually also certain branches in the game. So for instance, if you play the Danish main storyline, you will find that some players, they have never discovered the second branch. They've only played one of the branches. So there are 2 different ways you can play it. And we've realized that most players actually go down one route and only very few go down the second, which is quite interesting. And we will find out over the next few weeks, I guess, with more players coming onto it, why that is. I think it's because, I don't want to spoil it, so players have to find out.
Yeah, you're going to need some sort of challenge, right, to make sure everybody goes down every branch. All right, so the writing of a game like this, we know it's complicated. We know it can really make or break a game. But a game like this is also really driven by the graphics. This is such a beautiful and polished game. How did you decide on the style of graphics? Because it's not super realistic. There's kind of a cartoon quality. But at the same time, it feels very authentic.
I'm quite old, Jerry. So I remember still the old Prince Valiant comics, which were reprinted in Austria and Germany back in the 70s. And those, they're originally American comics from the 1930s, and they're really, really lovely. And I thought it would be really cool to actually do a game which goes into that direction. So when we actually started hiring artists, we were looking at, can they actually do a semi-realistic comic style? And from there, everything started. So all the folks we found for the team, they are actually able to do this style. And we were able to actually create the whole art, the characters, the backgrounds, everything in one in this art style.
So the writing, the narrative around it, right, is really drawing you in. You have this really cool visual experience. But I got to say, man, if there's one thing that gets my blood pumping, it is this nonstop soundtrack that you have created. That is it is so, I feel like everything, even picking whether or not I want another farmer is the most intense, epic decision I'm ever going to make. It's serious. How did you, are you the writer of the score, or where'd it come from?
No, we have actually our composer, Victor. Victor Iara. He's based in Barcelona. He has done a few video games now, but he did mostly television and music for theater. And so actually, when we started to work on how the score should sound like, we were talking about actually early medieval and very old European folk music. So we found old samples. We found samples from the Faroe Islands. We found old Celtic music, and we tried to actually, and even old instruments like the Saxon lyre. So we put all those things together, and then Victor was composing with those ideas in mind, and what came out was great. So when I heard the first 2-3 tracks, I was like, yes, we need more of that. And unfortunately, we ran out of money after a while for the score, so it's only like 8 or 9 tracks. I would love to have like 15 or 16. Yeah. But all those tracks we have now, they're really amazing. They're really, really well in the game.
I'll tell you the truth, Joachim. I have to turn down the music every once in a while because my hands are getting sweaty. I'm like, it's so intense, that I turn it back up and I'm like, back in, here we go. I mean, it really is terrific. All right, let's talk about technology, right? So this is a great game. This is a Unity game.
Yes, it is. We picked Unity because, first of all, most of the folks here at university, they use Unity at one point. So it's something which is, as a technology choice, it's just the easiest. It's if you want to develop a game, you want to prototype it quickly, you want to put it out there, with everything about it makes sense. It's just for us, it was really the most cost-effective solution to get a game from like the early stage and prototyping to actually have something you can actually release. And if you look at it now with everything that's happened in the Unity side, and now it's 5.6 came out, there's a lot of stuff happening.
It's a smart
engine
choice.
has evolved. Yeah.
Or a lucky choice, yeah. And you know what? I don't think Unity is really a compromise either. You're just lucky to have a really great engine, a really great kind of composer screen, and as well as it's so well known. It's the same. I tell you what, if it's true in Spain, it's true in the United States. It's easy to find people with Unity experience, and it's easy to take people with no Unity experience and make them pretty great pretty fast, right? It's a pretty straightforward environment to start building out pretty great experiences and really beautiful kind of interactions. This is now this isn't a 3D game. This is a 2D, or is it? It looks 3D.
It looks 3D, but it's a 2D game. So it took us a while to find the right isometric look and feel for the game, because everything we do, all the art we do, has like we fake a lot of perspective. So sometimes if you look at it, you think it's 3D, but actually no. Even the landscapes, the settlements, they're all 2D, but we are actually faking perspective with movement and how we actually draw the middle ground, the background art in the settlements. So all those things, it's quite interesting. It took us quite a while to get it right.
Yeah, I'll bet it did. It looks terrific. Okay, so I'm looking to where I can go get the Great Whale Road. And by the way, let's talk about the name for a second. Where's the name from?
So this is the Whale Road is an Old English kenning. So it's like a rhyme for the sea. So it's like the road of the whales, really, or the path of the whales. So that's where the whales are traveling, and you're traveling on the sea. So the Whale Road made sense. And we just added the great to it to make sure we don't end up on the W in some cases, because we want to, it's kind of a list. You don't want to be at the
sure.
end.
You should have called it a Great Whale Road. All right, I see where the great came from. So it's kind of like naming it the sea. I get it. So it makes plenty of sense. You spend a lot of time in boats in this game, so it definitely plays to it. Okay, I'm looking for the Great Whale Road, and what are some of the avenues that, as a businessman, you decided to choose to deliver your game?
We started off looking at, of course, Steam. Steam is one of the platforms. If you do an indie game, mainly for the PC, it's the platform you have to be on nowadays. It's also for us. It was a good option because we wanted to do a phase of early access, and Steam has a long history of where the players actually know how early access projects work, and you can get your game onto Steam for a few months in an earlier version like a beta or a late alpha, and people play it, give you feedback, and you can actually incorporate that feedback into your game, which we did a lot. So we spent like nearly 8 months in early access, and it was very, very good for us to actually see players play it, give us feedback, and actually then, move the game in certain areas.
Let's talk about user feedback for a second. how much, if I were to look at the Great Whale Road a year ago versus today, how different is it? How much do you listen to what your players are saying to you?
I think it has changed by at least 50 or 60%.
Wow.
So it has changed. It has changed a lot. Yeah. That's also why I think that's something you have to always consider in game development. That if you have to make changes, because if you use a feedback, be prepared for the costs, because there can be a lot of costs later on. Yeah.
And be willing to have a pre-release early, even if some of your graphics look terrible, even if some of your animations aren't quite there, just so you don't have to endure the cost of building it 2 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's kind of a new world, right? It didn't used to be this way. It used to be almost where the game authors would say, "This is fun," and they'd hand it to you. Makes me think of that E.T. game that Nintendo had. Okay, so we had it in Steam. All right, let's talk about Windows and option number 2.
Yes. So the Windows Store. It was actually something where it's really, really key nowadays to actually get onto every channel and possibility. And the Windows Store is, of course, a great option. It's something which is like a household name. The Windows 10 Store is something which is very well integrated. It's really easy to onboard to. So for us, it was something which was like, okay, it was a no-brainer. We were speaking to you guys and say, okay, yes, it makes absolutely sense. That's something we should do as soon as we can. And as soon as we were able to free resources, we were just trying it out, and we are really, really happy with the result.
Yeah, and I don't mind saying that having an application into the Windows Store even takes advantage of Windows 10s, which is brand new, right? And where nothing can install onto that device unless it's through the store. So if you want to have your game, if you want to have the Great Whale Road on the Windows 10s device, then done. All you have to do is put it into the store. But usually the apps that are in the store are UWP apps, Universal Windows Platform App. Yours is not that, and I think a lot of especially Unity developers, that they know that the Unity IDE has a drop-down that says export as Windows Store. That's not what you did, though. You use the desktop bridge. Why one way and not the other?
For us, it's like a first step. Yeah, because the desktop bridge allows us to actually export the game as is. Yeah. Without considering that we might have to we should actually change the user interface and all those things, the whole UI and UX design for touchscreen and things like that. So for us to actually just switch it out and say, okay, with more or less running one export tool, we can turn our Unity game into a game on the Windows Store is so much easier, and we can do it at any time in our life cycle, even if we have don't have like 3 months of budget or time available to actually redo certain things like the UI.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so it goes kind of like this. I've written my application in Unity. I want to export it to the store. Maybe I'm on the right version of Unity. Maybe not. Maybe I have to upgrade so I can export it to the store. That's not even a consideration using the desktop bridge. We just wrap it. Treat it like wrap it with an Apex. Treat it as if it's a store application, and off it goes. And so you made the point, and that I think that's perfect. Is even if you haven't made it for like a small mobile device or something that's only touchscreen, you can still deliver it now through the store and get a lot of the advantage that the store gives you, right? The thing where it will install it, it'll uninstall it for you, it'll keep track of versions, it'll give you telemetry, it'll update it whenever you guys put out new versions to make sure everybody out there has the latest version as well. So you get all these benefits, and the code changes. Now, I know because I was part of your process, right? So I know how many lines of code you had to change in order to get into the store. And it's none. It was incredible. I mean, we wrapped it into the Apex using the desktop converter, and then the only thing we had to chase down was the renaming of a file. So we go in, we fix that rename. Yeah. And they were like, oh.
It's more or less out of the box. So for us, it was like it was a super smooth integration. And there are other channels where I can say the integration is by far not as smooth.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's the point of the bridge, but at the same time, the value to you is you still have a single build channel now, right? You don't have multiple code bases. You don't have multiple, whatever, one for this, one for that. You can make it so that we just reuse the exe you already had prepared for Windows. So, I mean, everybody's a winner, right? Everybody's a winner. I'm a user, so I get it in the store. You're the author, so you get it in the store. Who's losing in this? Nobody is. It's pretty great. Yeah, it really is.
Nobody, yeah?
Nobody, yeah. I like win-win. I'm a big fan of win-win. Tell me just a little bit about the future of the Great Railroad. What do you call it right now? Version 1 or what number are we on?
We are now on version 1.09 as of today.
Okay.
So we are the next update. We have a big update planned for the end of May. So that will be version 1.1. Or maybe, depending on how quick we are with patching in between, 1.2, depending if we go wild the next 2.5 weeks. In general, this will be the first big major update where we add 2 more storylines to the game. So at the moment you can but you can, it's maybe not the right word. You have one full story for like one Danish village in Ulfostad. And we are actually adding 2 cultures to the game. You can play a Frankish monastery and you can play as a Frisian village. So you get these 2 storylines will be added, plus loads of events in addition and event illustrations. So we've actually started all the main quest events will get their own specific illustration. That's a lot of stuff happening in the background.
And, this game it's such a deep game and so much to play. And you as the author, I'm sure you've played it a million times. Tell me the truth. You go to bed, you close your eyes, and all you see is the Great Railroad.
I don't know how many hundreds of hours I've played it. Yeah, it's like, because we have multiple accounts, studio account. I think I've just alone on the studio account. I think I've played 300 hours or something. Yeah. So the thing is, you play it so many times, and you rarely play it end to end. So you always you play a few events, you play a quest, you test something, you try something out, you do it again. So you play the same thing for like 50 times in a row. Yeah. So and then you dream of everything. You dream of the scripting language, of the speeds, of the events, of the bugs.
Tell me what's happening with the game in the future? Like, you're going to change some of the narrative, you're going to change some of the graphics, or is the gameplay, is it going to be that same gameplay I see today?
It's going to be the same gameplay as it now. I think it will be additional narrative, and we are doing a lot of balancing in the background because we have now a larger player base, we get more feedback, so we are rebalancing some of the fights in the game, and we are adding art. So it's narrative and art primarily.
It really is a balance of difficulty and fun, isn't it? I mean, sometimes you're playing along, you're like, this game, I hate this game, I can never win, and then you play another game, you're like, I hate this game, it's not a challenge, and there's some weird balance that really, I guess, only playing can tell you.
Yes, and the other thing is, like, it might be, even if it's too easy for me, it might not be too easy for the average player. So balancing that in the right way is often not so easy. But I think we're getting there now, slowly but steady.
Yeah. Well, of course, and every game does. So it's the way I see it, it's Halo and the Great Railroad.
Thank you very much, Jerry.
And then what's next for Sunburned Games?
We don't know yet. So we have to complete the May release. And then we have to look at sales numbers. We have another project planned, and we actually started on a concept. But it's with game development, it's always like the last title defines the next title. So it's always like, how much money do you have available to do something, and what can you do? Yeah, that's always the question. So we are excitedly waiting to see. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a great story, right? I mean, you pick a technology that only makes sense. You pour your heart into it. You deploy it to Steam, a massive marketplace. You put it into the Windows Store through the desktop bridge, so you don't have to really change any of your technology around. Now everything's rolling, and now it's just kind of, it's almost like that TV commercial where you're watching the users click, 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 right? I mean, now what's going to happen next? It's pretty exciting. Joachim, good job on the game. It's a lot of fun to play, and thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Jerry.
We'll see you again.